Hello, hello. Hey there, creative fam. So, I thought for this episode, we might jump in and talk about how I became a picture book illustrator. I don't think I talked about it. I think I had visuals, but I didn't talk about it. And so I figured since I have this little presentation I put together, and I think I put it up as a short or something on YouTube, we can do a little bit of a deeper dive. And if y'all have questions, you can, comment below and we can chat about it. And if you want me to make a part two, how do I stay a picture book illustrator? We can do that too. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so how I became a picture book illustrator. So I'll just read off what the card says. I went to art school. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. Actually, let's start a little bit further back. I actually went to a community college in Charlottesville, where I grew up, for about 2 years, I think. Did some of my liberal classes, and then from there, I I started taking art classes with one of my best friends, and I think in that part of taking those classes, I realized that, oh, I think I want to do art as a career. I just don't know what exactly. Um, so I applied to a couple different schools. I ended up going to City College in New York for a year. And then I took an illustration class while I was there. And that kind of opened my eyes to all of the different avenues you could take within illustration as a career. So I had a really great illustration teacher, professor. I believe his name was Joseph Hart. And through his class is where I met Sean Qualls. Sean came to our class and did a little presentation and told us about his career and how he got to where he was that day within his career. And through Sean is where I also met Selena. And and that's kind of where I found out about picture books and how you could make a career in picture books. So he said at the presentation when he came to our class, he said that hey, if anybody wants to intern, just let me know. Y'all can come down and help me out in the studio and this and that, whatever. So I was like, okay, I'm interested in picture books. I'm interested in illustration. Why not? So I emailed him. I got to intern with him for a little bit over the summer, met his wife, Selena, got to work with some of her original artwork, which was really cool because I got to scan in some artwork for her and label it and things like that. Sean took me on a tour of his studio at the time. So it was really cool to get to see how working illustrators work. And so that was really cool. From there, I decided that illustration was what I wanted to do. So I actually looked for, what is it? I looked for different schools within the New York area. There was Parsons, there's Pratt, there's SVA, there's FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and then what was it? The School of, what's SVA? Visual Arts. There we go. School of Visual Arts. And then there's also I can't remember what it's called, but there's another school there's a couple other smaller schools as well. You could also do art at NYU, but being that I had gone to at least two different schools at this point, I honestly did not want to spend a ton of money, and FIT was the cheapest. And then because I also had been living in New York for a while, I could take permanent residency in New York, and then I could get in-state tuition. So because I could also live with my grandmother and move just physically and just fully move to New York. So that's what I did. I dormed at FIT for the first year, decided that illustration was the route I wanted to take. I did my portfolio review. I was waiting for a long time to see if I would get in. I checked on the website multiple times. Nothing on the website. And then when I had gone to Virginia to hang out with my mom for a little bit, for maybe a month or a few weeks or something like that. And we get back to New York, and there's like this big envelope on the table, and my grandmother was like, "Oh yeah, this came for you while you were gone." And I was like, and it said congratulations on the cover. And I was like, "Granny, really? You couldn't tell me that this really important thing showed up for me?" Like, and I could have been less stressed while I was away, you know. But I got in to the school, which was great. And yeah, I enjoyed my time at FIT, but I do have to say that I learned a lot, but I also think that I learned more out of school than in school. And that's because I knew where I wanted to focus. See, the thing about going to college is that it's kind of a general surface of interest, right? It's not anything that's super deep dived unless you go to like maybe an MFA program or something a little bit more tailored to the interest in which you know that you want to dive into. And so when I took my illustration classes at FIT, yeah, we had fundamentals, we had live figure drawing classes, we had a bookmaking class, we had like a experiment with like different mediums class, and a lot of figure drawing, a lot of observational drawing, anatomy classes, which is great for fundamentals and all of that good stuff. But when you figure out where you want to go and what you want to be doing, I think at some point while you're in college, you need to start taking classes that really focus on those things. So luckily, I did have a book illustration class where I was able to focus a little bit on creating children's books, because my professor at the time was Eric Velasquez, and as we know, Eric Velasquez is a well-known picture book illustrator. And while yes, I interned with Sean and Selena, I didn't fully have an idea of how to break into the picture book industry, because I wasn't asking the right questions. I didn't really know what I wanted and what I needed to know to be able to be in this business. So when I took my book illustration class with Eric, I had more of an idea of what I needed to know, learn, understand, to become, someone in this industry. So from there, I wrote my first picture book. I did my first book dummy, and he sat me down actually and was like, "Hey, I think you have something here, and if you want, I can help you. Like, I can hook you up with like, someone who does like, I don't know if she was going to be doing mentoring or not, or like if he knew someone who was like, I can't really remember the conversation, but he literally was just going to connect me with someone within the industry that he knew that would help mentor me to get wherever I wanted to be, I guess. And at the time, I'm this college student who doesn't fully know what she wants to do. So I said, "Oh, okay." And it's really weird because I was this kid in school who didn't fully know where they wanted to go. I knew I wanted to do picture books, but I didn't think that I guess I was good enough to have someone believe in me like that already. You know what I mean? So I kind of laughed it off a little bit and said, "Oh, okay, sure." But I never took him up on it. So then flash forward, I don't know, maybe, no, I think this is the same year. We had, a mentor class. And so our professor was like, "You need to email an illustrator or email whoever is in the industry you want to be in, and email them and ask them to mentor you." And I was like, that is a huge ask. Okay. So I said, "Okay, I want to be in picture books. I kind of have an in with Sean and Selena. So let's tap into that first." And then he said, "You know what? Shoot for the stars. Email, the the top of your list," right? And not that Sean and Selena are not at the top of my list. They are. But I mean, if I have to say who my favorite picture book illustrator was at the time and is still on my top 5 list, Dan Santat, right? Because I was in love with the replacements. I absolutely loved the replacements on the Disney Channel. And when I found out that he was the creator of it, I was like, oh my goodness. And then he also does picture books. I was like, oh my goodness. So he was the top of my list. So I emailed him and I emailed Sean and Selena. They were a bit busy, so they didn't have time in their schedule to mentor me that semester. But they said if I come back next semester, hopefully we could work something out. We did. They ended up being my mentor for the semester afterwards. But I emailed Dan, and Dan said yes. He was like, sure. I mean, why not? So I mentored with Dan Santat for a little bit, which was cool. I didn't actually finish the project because, again, I was a horrible student. Like, I feel like I had so many opportunities to like just do really well. And I don't know if I self-sabotaged myself or I just felt like all of these opportunities that are happening, I feel like I'm not ready for them, right? And taking advantage, quote unquote, of those opportunities felt weird to me because I didn't feel like I was ready yet. But I was having these kind of like connections with people that I thought in my mind were rock stars: Eric Velasquez, Sean Qual, Selena Alcove, Dan Santat. Like, these are names, right? To me, they're names in this industry. Like, people know who they are if you talk to anyone in publishing, within picture books, I guess, and even outside of picture books, probably. So in my little like college brain, I'm like, I can't. You all are doing too much. I just need to get through this chunk, and then we can assess. And so yeah, it was a great mentorship. I mentored with Dan, and then I mentored with Selena the semester after, and I felt like I really got somewhere with both, actually. But I also realized that I did not have a children's book portfolio coming out of college because all of the work that I showed both Dan and Selena, they both were like, these aren't really picture book pieces. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had to absolutely, once I graduated, I had to rethink my portfolio. I had to re-envision what that was going to be. And then I had to do more work because even though I had all of these fundamental things from school, I was nowhere near having a finished professional portfolio. So, with that said, once I graduated from FIT, I had to pay back student loans. So, in 2012, I got a full-time job as a production artist at a t-shirt printing company. And then I spent about 8 years there with some upward career movement. I pretty much went from like a production artist to a expert production artist to an in-house illustrator. And that was fine for a while. It was nice to be able to say I'm using my degree because my title has the word artist in it. However, it was very tedious work and it wasn't super fulfilling work. I do have to say that it did help me get a little bit better with Illustrator, for sure. It helped me get better with Photoshop, and for the two first roles, production artist and expert production artist, I would say that's about it. I also know like how to layer files for printing a t-shirt, but other than that, yeah, I think the two roles that I had prior to being an in-house illustrator, they weren't very fulfilling. But they paid the bills. They're paying my student loans, and I was able to live pretty comfortably. I had to move from New York to Virginia, which was fine because I grew up in Virginia, so it was familiar. Did I really want to leave New York? Not really, but at the same time, I think I was having the realization that I was going to be doing a lot of odd and ends. I was going to be doing a lot of odd jobs until I either finally broke through with my portfolio into publishing, or I got a publishing job being like an assistant or something to an art director, which I wouldn't have minded. I did go on interviews. I went actually, which is funny because now I work with all of these companies, but I went on an interview with Simon and Schuster. I went on an interview with Penguin. This was before Penguin and Random House joined together, I believe. I went on an interview with Scholastic, and I'm pretty sure I didn't get any of the jobs because no one called me to let me know I got them. But I ended up getting a job with my girlfriend at the time. She was working at an after school program within the office, and so I got a job as kind of like a on the streets in the schools kind of assistant. Like I just had to be like a body in the school so that the program could run, and that if anybody from the education department or whatever came to do whatever they do, there was someone from the company at the school, right? So I was pretty much just, getting paid, I don't know, $12 an hour or something to just show up at a school and just be there. Um, yeah, so I was tired of that really quickly. I mean, it was cool to be like in the schools and stuff and kind of hanging out with the kids and just seeing like how kids function at that point in time. Because I had been out of school, like public school, for at least what, like maybe 5 or 6 years at that point. So I don't know. School is different for different people. Also, New York schools are very different from Charlottesville, Virginia schools. Anyways, so I'm gonna say so a lot, just FYI. Um, so I got tired of that really quickly, and that's what led me to apply for the production artist job. And even though it meant moving out of New York and potentially actually losing my girlfriend, I didn't really know how we were going to navigate that until she said, "I'm coming with you." Um, we ended up moving to Virginia, and yes, said girlfriend is now my wife. And we now have a little 3-year-old and 2 cats. So yeah, the move worked out. So from there, yes. So my big thing was that I didn't want to keep doing odd jobs and having to struggle to figure out how I'm going to pay my student loans, because after you've been out of school for about a year, your student loans just start showing up and they say, "Hey, it's time for you to pay us." And I really don't think a year is long enough for you to successfully find a job. So that kind of scared me. I did a few internships like at galleries and like art spaces, but honestly, I could not afford to do them because I could not afford to get a MetroCard every week, every month, with the little bit of money that I didn't have. So I did end up, actually, before I graduated, I worked at Blick Arts, was it Blick Art Store? Art Materials. I worked there for, I think, less than a year, maybe a year. I don't know. That was interesting. It was fun. Everybody there was, yeah. I don't even want to speak on it. Like, everybody that was there was, yeah. But anyways, so when I graduated, I took the job in Virginia. We moved down to Virginia, and yeah, that was it was a so-so experience. It was cool. Like, most of the people that were working there, well, at least in my department, were, newly graduated or, just young. and and it was fun for a while. It fed my sneaker addiction. It paid my student loans. It kept a roof over my head. So I was happy for a while. But then we decided to move to Nevada. Just, I don't know, change of scenery. Never lived on the West Coast before. We moved to Nevada, and while we were there, I felt very like this isn't it. Like, I don't want to keep working here. So when we moved, we did get a little bit better what is it? Cost of living, I guess, because Nevada is a little bit cheaper. It doesn't have state tax. So the little bit of like, um, there would be a little bit of a difference in my paycheck. Like it didn't change because we don't have state tax in Nevada. The um, the income shift in what I was making in Virginia didn't really affect me, because I think I was gonna make less money in Nevada, but because there was no state tax, it kind of balanced out. Um, so, with that said, I started um, thinking beyond the job I was working at. I said, I don't want to work here forever. This is not fulfilling me. So, so, um, so we just went through the last slide. I didn't talk really about that because I think I talked on it prior to the slide. But so since I knew that this wasn't where I wanted to stay, I didn't just do nothing for the next 5 years. I took illustration classes with Storyteller Academy. I went to the SCBWI conferences. I think I went to two in LA. I went to a few smaller ones, maybe one smaller one. Um, and then I went to the one in New York. I practiced character design. I created book dummies of my ideas. I queried agents, got rejections, wrote many manuscripts, formed a crit group, learned a lot about the children's publishing industry, started crafting the illustrator I wanted to be, meaning I was looking at what was getting published and I was looking at the illustrators that I admired. And I said, okay, how do I get my work to be on par with theirs, right? How do I get to that point? And so I worked on that. I worked a lot on that. I do feel like my first portfolio that I went to the SCBWI conference with, I feel like it was decent enough to get work. Um, Sorry, that was our nest doing checks. If you heard that in the background. I think my portfolio, and I might do a little video over in this section so y'all can see that, and then maybe I'll do a video talking about the different portfolios that I've had. Um, but I do think my portfolio was decent enough to get work, but I also didn't feel a lot of passion behind it. I didn't feel like it was really representing me as a person and as an artist. So I went back to the drawing board. And at this point, I think I reached out to Sean Qualls, and I said, hey, Sean, I'm really having a hard time like nailing down my portfolio. And so I was like, I've been spending a lot of time in my sketchbook. I've been doing all of these different types of um, experiments. And could you just check out my sketchbook and let me know your thoughts? Um, and so I did like a little video for him to look at since we weren't living in the same state anymore. Um, and I was just like, whatever thoughts you have, give them to me. um, and so there is also, I got mentors. And even though I say I got mentors, like they don't necessarily need to be people that you actively work with. They could literally be anybody who is producing the work that you are inspired by. There are a lot of people who have YouTube channels. There are a lot of people who put out blogs. Rebecca Green does a newsletter. She does behind the scenes on her Patreon. There's a lot of artists who do that as well, where maybe you're not going to have the one-on-one with them, but you're still getting an insight into what they do and how they work and how they create the things they create. And so I think that that's a great way to start building up your own artistic voice. And that's what I did. I looked at the artists that I admired, and I looked at their Instagrams. I looked to see if they had any videos of them talking about their process, and they became my mentors without them even knowing it, right? I remember I went through a hardcore John Clausen stage, where I was listening to every interview, I was listening to every behind the scenes that he'd done, because I really just wanted to understand his thought process around making artwork. And then I wanted to see how he made it. I don't make work like him, but I was interested in just his process. And then Christian Robinson, same deal. Like, I wanted to know how he made it so simple, but yet so not simple at the same time. Like, I know that these things take a long time to make. They don't just appear. As much as AI would like you to believe, it doesn't just happen like that, right? So I needed to figure out, well, what is my process? Um, what am I trying to say as an artist, and what do I want my voice to sound like and look like? So I spent a very long time working on a portfolio. I had two portfolios that were pretty, I wouldn't say they were similar, but they were, no. I think my first portfolio for the SCBWI conference in 2016, I took it, but as soon as I left, I think I scrapped it and started working on something different. My second portfolio, I'm trying to remember if I don't know, I feel like I took two different portfolios possibly, but I'm not sure. But it wasn't until I went to the New York conference, and that was my third portfolio, that I actually started getting interest, and I started getting um, attention from editors, from agents. I remember I went to one conference and I had notes in my portfolio about how wonderful my art looked and such. And so that was a sign that was letting me know that you are moving in the right direction. I wasn't getting that with the artwork I was making before. But now, because I'm starting to understand who I am as an artist, I was starting to get this validation. Small, but still validation. Um, so I continued working, and then I actually got interest from an agency um, that was interested in repping me. I think I ended up turning them down just because I didn't feel like they were the right fit for me. But that was a big um, green light for me, because an agency is looking to rep me. That to me is like, the green light to, you are doing something here, keep going. And then finally signed with my agent Claire at Painted Words. And that was the biggest move that I have ever made career wise. And it absolutely has changed my life. It has absolutely been the best thing that I could have done. Um, and I'm still with Claire to this day. Uh, no plans of leaving, as far as I know. Um, and yeah, it's been a wild ride, Creative Fam. Like, it hasn't been a straight shot for me getting to this point. And I like I say, I think, actually I don't think I said this before, but I'm saying it now. Everyone's career path, everyone's journey to publication is different. Um, I never thought that I would be a picture book illustrator. It wasn't until maybe leaving college that I had a little bit of an inkling. And it wasn't until I started doing the work, going to conferences, writing my manuscripts, finding the right agency, um, that I felt like, yes, this is something that I can do, and this is something for me. Um, my first author illustrated picture book comes out next year, the beginning of next year, 2024. And I'm so excited. And every time I look at my mock book cover, I get so warm and just so overwhelmed at the same time. Because it's something that I just never really, it's not that I didn't see it for myself per se. It's just, when you've worked so hard to get to some place and you finally get there, and everything isn't necessarily how you thought it would be, but it is very much in line with what you thought. Like, it's close enough to what you thought it would be. Um, it's very surreal and just very, I don't know. it just feels great. It really does. It feels good. So now, after signing with Claire, a lot of things happened. And let's go to the next slide and see what happened. Like I said, it's been a wild ride. I've illustrated a handful of picture books. A lot of them they've been very different. I'm very happy to say that a lot of the picture books that I've done have been distinctly different. We have a book about cousins. We have a book about affirmations. We have books about positivity. We have books about Mrs. Claus. We have books about historical things that have happened, such as the shutdown of schools in Virginia and the Great Migration with all aboard the school train. Yeah, and we also have a baby book. We have, beautiful black boys who believe in a better world, talking about police brutality and just racism and discrimination. We also have Hair Story, which is about loving your natural hair and just, loving it to its fullest potential and beyond. So that's one of the things that I'm really happy with the catalog of books that I've been able to illustrate. I love the fact that I have a wide variety of stories under my belt, because one of the things that I was a little worried about was that when coming into publishing and being an illustrator, a black illustrator, was that I didn't want to do I didn't want to have a whole catalog of historical event books or bio books, because I had seen a couple of black illustrators, and a lot of their books are that. And I think there is a place and a time for books of that nature. And, those are the books that I saw growing up. There was a lot of those. But as someone who is very whimsical and imaginative minded, and I'm drawn to books like Tar Beach and Where the Wild Things Are and The Wizard of Oz, where you go on this journey, and even though you come back home, but you go on this really amazing ride before you come back home, right? And so in my head, I always wanted a Where the Wild Things Are, with a black kid, a kid that looked like me, because that is a story that I was drawn to. But I never saw a lot of books that did that. It's like, I don't know, it just felt like if you were black, you could not have that type of book. Like, your books needed to be about civil rights, about racism, about segregation, about Jim Crow, about, Rosa Parks biographies, about black people doing amazing things. And while that is absolutely necessary and absolutely important, I also think it is important for children to be able to dream and be whimsical and use their imagination. But I also think it's important that we're not just constantly giving them affirmation books that are telling them this. Like, I feel like kids need to see the character that represents them and looks like them doing the thing, right? I don't know how many kids saw Where the Wild Things Are and said, yeah, that's what I want to be doing. But for me, as an illustrator, as a creator, I want to go beyond that, in a sense. I want to open that door of imagination. I want to open that door of creativity. And I want to do it through a story. In my book, Between Two Windows, we have two characters, Kayla and Mateo. And one of the major parts of this book is their imagination. They create characters. These characters then take them on a journey. And then we come back to their reality and we merge their imagination and their realities together. And I love the fact that I don't know if it's clear that Mateo doesn't speak English, but the fact that they communicate through drawings is amazing to me. Because I think you put a piece of paper and a pencil and a crayons or whatever in front of kids, they will just go at it. They don't need to know your whole backstory to draw with you. They don't need to know, where you line politically. They just see paper, crayons, let's go. Let's draw something. Let's do something. And I think that there's a lot to be learned there. When I create my stories, I want kids to be able, specifically black and brown kids, to be able to use their imagination. I want them to dream. I want them to be whimsical. I want them to feel like they can go above the clouds and there is, whatever they imagine beyond that. And that's where the heart of my books and the stories that I create, I think that's where that they sit. They sit beyond the clouds, almost like a Cosette from Les Mis. I'm not gonna sing it because I'm not a good singer, but it's like what is it? There is a castle on the cloud. There is a castle on a cloud. I like to go there in my dreams. Aren't any floors for me to sweep? Not in my castle going deep, on a cloud. She does go. It's too deep for me. But yeah, it's like that. It's like she doesn't want to have what is in her reality in this imaginative place that she's supposed to have no responsibility or no burden of reality. So that's the stories I want to make. I want to make a place for kids to escape to where they're not constantly just being bombarded by everything the world is going through right now and whatever it might be in the future. And now let's talk about this next clip. Like I said, I'm working on my debut author-illustrated picture book. And yeah, so it took me about 7 years to get here. And I'm happy and blessed for this moment in my life. And I think I talked about this in the last segment. But yeah, like I said, not everyone's journey is the same. Some people it takes less time. Some people it takes more time. I had a lot of things in between getting here that took my attention. But I'm happy that I'm here. And yeah, I'm excited for my book to come out in 2024. Like I said, it is infused with imagination, whimsy, and just creativity. And I love that our two characters are two kids of color. We've got Kayla, who's African American, black, and we have Mateo, who is Dominican. And I've been thinking about it for a while, because I know that some people, they want their characters, that are representing their background, to be created or authored by, their community, right? But I think because Kayla, who is loosely based on me, is a African American black female, and Mateo, who is our secondary character. Mateo actually represents my wife. My wife is Dominican, And so whenever I had a question, I would just, ask her. And I also, my daughter, she is Black and Dominican. So I do have receipts, you know what I mean? Like, I have resources at my fingertips. And I also did not specifically make this book about their, I didn't make it a deep dive into their backgrounds, because I wanted it to be about this friendship that blossoms through them drawing, and these elements that do come from their culture and their family, such as the pastelito Mateo shares with Kayla. Oops, sorry, hit the microphone. So we'll say that again. Um, the pastelito that Mateo shares with Kayla, and then Kayla's grandmother makes shaved ice, a piragua, some would call it. Um, and I used piragua because I felt like it made sense too. I mean, we could have just said shaved ice, but I liked using the term piragua. And she shares that with Mateo. So it looks like we're actually coming to the end of our how I became an illustrator, a picture book illustrator. I do a little bit of like, this is what you're going to see on my channel. And, thank you for watching and listening. And yeah, like I said, I probably did a little bit of a deep dive into some things. I may cut it out. I may leave it. I don't know. We're close to an hour. We're about 45 minutes into this thing. So yeah, thanks for listening, to my journey of how I became a picture book illustrator. I'll probably chop this up a little bit and maybe put it on like shorts or something. But yeah, this was an interesting conversation. And I hope that you were doing work or doing something while listening. And I hope you have a creative day. Thanks so much. Bye.